Hi everyone, I am Nikki and I will present our paper Exploring Technology-Mediated Parental Socialization of Emotion. Let's start with the motivation for this work. Emotion regulation is a fundamental life skill with far-reaching effects on life outcomes, comparable in size to those of IQ or family social status. In fact, difficulties in emotion regulation underpin a range of mental health issues, such as depression, anxiety, and self-harm, among others. Emotion-related parent-child interactions during early childhood play a crucial role in the development of emotion regulation through a process known as parental emotion socialization. Put simply, parents help children to understand, regulate, and appropriately express emotions through the way they react to their children's emotions, how they discuss or don't discuss emotions, and how they themselves express emotions. Despite the importance of those practices for children's lifelong well-being, only few interventions specifically target them. These interventions are time and resource intensive, and they lack scalable delivery approaches that would support the transfer of learnings to the home environment. While technology has the potential to address these challenges, only limited work in HCI has looked into how this could be achieved. We started unpacking this space by exploring the impact of an exemplar in-situ emotion regulation intervention on parental socialization practices over time. Purple is a child-focused intervention in the form of a smart toy, which emerged from prior HCI research and has now turned into a commercial product. You can read more about previous work on the smart toy in these publications, and you can learn more about the design process and the commercialization process at another talk at CHI this year. In a nutshell, the smart toy is an object that embodies the emotion regulation process. It's presented to the child as a little anxious creature in need of help, and it affords a set of simple actions the child can do to calm down or relax. While we cannot go into detail about the intervention's theory of change here, it is assumed that beyond offering in the moment emotion regulation support to the child, over time, the smart toy can also affect parent-child interactions around emotions, for example by facilitating the emergence of alternative family approaches around emotion regulation. Despite promising results from previous deployment studies with regards to offering in the moment support to children, prior research on the smart toy has not specifically looked at if and how it can facilitate additional parent-child interactions around emotions. So what did we do to start exploring this? In phase 1, we interviewed parents of young children who had had the smart toy for at least a month to understand how it would be appropriated, if it would naturally facilitate any parent-child interactions around emotions, and how and what impact this would have on families. In the next phase, we set out to explore how the smart toy could be expanded and linked with positive emotion-related parenting practices, and what additional design work would be needed to facilitate this. To that end, we ran co-design workshops with parents who had had the smart toy for at least 8 weeks, as well as with parenting course facilitators with experience in running an evidence-based parenting course with a focus on facilitating positive parent-child interactions around emotions. In what follows, we present what we think are the most interesting findings across these phases, but please refer to the paper for a full description of the findings. The majority of children who took part in the study interacted with the smart toy, and all parents whose children interacted with the toy found that it had impacted their child's emotion regulation in a positive way. For a subset of the families, the smart toy appeared to naturally elicit parent-child interactions around emotions, with parents often talking about how having the smart toy had facilitated discussions around emotions in various ways. For example, some parents found that the toy naturally brought up the topic of emotion regulation and served as a prompt to initiate related discussions in a casual and non-intimidating way. The toy's embodiment of the emotion regulation process appeared to be important in this regard, as it provided a tangible way for parents to explain to children how emotions might feel in their bodies and what they could do to manage them, in a way that a regular plush toy likely could have not. Here we summarize the ways through which the smart toy appeared to have facilitated those discussions, but we invite you to have a closer look at the paper for a full description through the participants' own words. Almost a third of our participants reported that the smart toy also impacted their relationships within their family in some way. For instance, parents described how there was less conflict in moments when the child would be asked to calm down since receiving the toy. Directing their child to the smart toy during emotional moments turned what could have been perceived by children as a punitive reaction, and therefore potentially upset them more or decrease their willingness to comply, to a suggestion of something helpful they could do to calm down. This, in turn, appeared to decrease conflict between parents and children, helping parents stay calmer and preventing an escalation of the situation. So what impact did we see on parents' emotional socialization? For the 10 families which reported wider family shifts, at least the first 2 of these aspects seem to have been affected. Those parents' reports showed a range of supportive reactions to children's emotions, including reactions that were emotion-focused, problem-focused, or encouraging of emotional expression. Most importantly, the smart toy appeared to help parents in approaching children's expressions of emotion as opportunities to connect and teach rather than a nuisance to be stopped, something which usually has to be explicitly taught in related parenting programs. However, for a large portion of participating families, the smart toy alone was not enough to elicit parent-child interactions around emotions. Although our data did not fully enable us to examine the reasons for such strong differences among the families, the interview suggests a number of potential reasons. Overall, while our work provides a first indication that situated interactive interventions aimed at the child could also affect wider changes in parent-child interactions around emotions, more work is needed to understand how such changes can be directly supported through socio-technical design. We conclude this talk by proposing a set of design directions for technology-enabled systems that aim to elicit and scaffold specific parent-child interactions over time. The first level pertains to designing the child experience. To put it simply, if the object doesn't fit with the child's practices, if the child doesn't find it appealing, and if their interaction with it isn't enjoyable or helpful, it is likely the parents will not have much to work with. The second level then builds on the child's experiences with intervention to start engaging the parent. Finally, we argue that technologies aiming to impact or elicit interactions between parents and children should also take into consideration and specifically designed for the dyadic experience they aim to generate. I invite you to have a closer look at our paper for a more detailed description of our work, and please do reach out if you want to talk more about it. Thank you for listening, and an extra thank you to my co-author Petr Slovak, to our amazing participants, our collaborators, and many more who have inspired and supported this research. Thank you.